Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we are going to continue our study of our slides of the origin, history, and destiny of universe reality. And this is part 13 tonight of our study. And I wanted to mention something to everyone in the group tonight while we're still working on the infinite spirit. We have already covered God the Father and God the Son in great detail. And so I want to do the same with the infinite spirit. Thing is, with this slide, I think it's a little small to read. So I think I'm going to switch views to the book. And we'll read it from the book tonight if I can find the view of the book here. Oh, there it is. Someone let's face it. This. Can you read that a little bit better?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we'll read it from here. And we're going to go through this whole second section. This is from the paper of the Infinite Spirit. And after we finish this, we're going to be going into the other absolutes, the other three absolutes, because we've covered everything else. All right, so let's start here. Let me say a little prayer for us to get started. Hey, Latch, and hey, Rodney.
Hi.
Father, thank you for bringing us together tonight. Thank you for this wonderful revelation. Thank you for the ability to be able to share this with one another and share it with friends and everyone on the internet, that they might learn from this a little bit, this wonderful revelation you've given to us to prepare us for the mansion worlds. And we really appreciate it, Lord, beyond imagination. It's just changed all of our lives so much. We thank you. We give you the praise in your son, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen. All right, so my wife, did you put your things in there? Okay, unmute, and why don't you take the first one?
2. Nature of the infinite spirit. The conjoint creator is from eternity and is holy and without qualification, one with the universal Father and the eternal Son. The infinite spirit reflects imperfection, not only the nature of the Paradise Father, but also the nature of the original Son.
Okay, from studying the nature of the universal Father and the eternal Son, it basically is trying to tell us here that the infinite spirit not only has all the aspects of the nature of the Paradise Father, but the nature of the original Son. And what is the highlighting thing in the nature of the original Son? Do y'all remember? Mercy. Okay.
Wow.
So it's the Son's mercy that reflects through the conjoint actor or the infinite spirit, right? And that's what the point they're making here. The infinite spirit not only has all the attributes of the Father, but has the mercy attribute of the Son also. All right. Let's see. Well, it rearranged me again, didn't it? Let me go back up here to Gary, and then we'll drop down to the second thing. Gary, would you take the next one?
Okay. The third source and center is known by numerous titles: the Universal Spirit, the Supreme Guide, the Conjoint Creator, the Divine Executive, the Infinite Mind, the Spirit of Spirits, the Paradise Mother Spirit, the Conjoint Actor, the Final Coordinator, the Omnipresent Spirit, the Absolute Intelligence, the Divine Action, and on your rancher, he is sometimes confused with the cosmic mind.
Okay, now why do they say is sometimes confused with the cosmic mind? Because the cosmic mind is a circuit. That's not just the infinite spirit. It's a circuit. One of the circuits of the infinite spirit is the cosmic mind. So that's why they're saying this here. Also, these other names I want to bring out, the fact that these other names are known to other planets and other universes as these names for the infinite spirit. Okay, so since there's so many different names that different planets and different universes called the infinite spirit. They wanted to list some of them for us so that we know some of the other names for him or her, if you want to give it a sex. But an interesting thing on this one too is the Paradise Mother Spirit, the eternal Son, is also known as what? The Mother Spirit also, is he not?
As in paper 6 of them.
Yeah, on paper 6 about the eternal Son. And the reason being is the eternal Son is the mother of all the spirit creator sons, as the Father is the father for all the creator sons. The Son is the mother of all the creator sons. Okay, so he's considered the mother spirit also. All right, let me raise this up a little bit so we can see it a little bit better.
So that makes him the transgender.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting that you say that too, Gary, because it's not really transgender, because you can think of the deities as both genders constantly, right? There is no male and female in the Paradise Trinity. They just are. And they have tendencies of both male and female.
There's no
Now,
harm.
there's no hormones, right? Now, that's not the case when we talk about the created sons and daughters of the local universes, is it? Because the local universes are definitely male and female. Good examples of that is the material sons and daughters who become the Adams and Eves, right? But that's not all. All of the celestial support beings, all the angels, are all female. They serve in pairs, but they're both female. Okay. So in the local universes, there's definitely a tendency between male and female. And that seems to be the case even with the Melchizedeks and the Lananandeks and Verandadek sons also. Now, the life carriers, I'm not sure. They call them sons of God too, but they could be either way. Okay. So it just shows you the difference between the the paradise deities and the created deities, which is all under the local universe creative spirit and the creator sons. Now, we know the creator sons are all male, right? Well, we know all the local universe mother spirits are what? Female, right? So that's the case with everything in the local universe, seems to be the case. All right, let's go on to the next one. Pam, would you take the next one, please?
It is altogether proper to determinate third person of deity, the spirit. God is spirit. But material creatures who tend towards the error of matter as basic reality and mind, together with spirit, as postulates rooted in matter, better comprehend the third source and center if he were called the infinite reality, universal organizer, or the personality coordinator.
Okay. Somebody just paged me. I don't know who this is, but they're talking to me like they know me, so I don't know. I'm in a meeting, so. All right, so the main point of this particular paragraph is they're talking that God is spirit, and the third person of deity, the infinite spirit, is spirit. And they're pointing out here that we as material creatures have a tendency to assign everything as a matter and mind together with spirit, where when you try to comprehend the deity, that is not the case. The deities are spirit, pure spirit, and there is no matter and mind to it. Okay, they're all one unit as a spirit, and the spirit Well, it's like a spiritual circuit. They talk about when you're talking about the eternal Son, that spiritual circuit incorporates that spirit circle incorporates, oops, what did they do there? The whole being of the spirit itself. In other words, there's not a body and a mind, it's all one unit. Does that make sense to y'all? Sort of. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. Let's, would you take the next one?
Okay. The infinite spirit, as a universe revelation of divinity, is unsearchable and utterly beyond human comprehension. To sense the absoluteness of the spirit, you need only contemplate the infinity of the universal Father and stand in awe of the eternity of the original Son.
Okay, so if you think about the Father and the Son being absolute, the absoluteness of them, never start, never have a beginning, never had an ending, the infinite spirit is just like that, right? Never had a beginning, never have an ending. And when you talk about them as the Trinity, they work together as a Trinity, as an inseparable unit. In other words, they always act as the three. Now they can function individually, but most everything having to do with their deity always acts as a threesome, as a trinity. All right. Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
Yes, there is mystery indeed in the person of the infinite spirit, but not so much as in the Father and the Son. Of all aspects of the Father's nature, the conjoint creator.
Sorry, y'all. Hi, Zach. Listen, I'm having a class right now. I'm in a meeting. Can I call you later? Let me give you a call tomorrow. Okay. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right. Go ahead, Rodney.
Okay, I'll start over.
All right.
There is mystery indeed in the person of the infinite spirit, but not so much as in the Father and the Son. Of all aspects of the Father's nature, the conjoint creator most strikingly discloses his infinity. Even if the master universe eventually expands to infinity, the spirit presence, energy, control, and mind potential of the actor will be found adequate to meet the demands of such limitless creation.
Okay. Y'all hang on a second. I think Gary's.
Hold on a second.
Gary, you didn't mute.
I'm leaving you.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
you're going for the baby, Gary?
Yep.
Okay. Well, be careful out there.
Okay, I'll see you. Bye.
See you next time.
Bye, birthday boy.
Bye.
Happy birthday.
Okay. The infinite spirit, we have to think a lot like the universal Father, the conjoint creator, or the infinite spirit, stretches itself even out through the four outer space levels, much like God the Father does. The only other thing you can think of that stretches itself out to all infinity like that is the unqualified absolute. Okay, remember the unqualified absolute's what pulls the primordial matter from neither paradise and pulls that matter out all the way out to the fourth outer space level to create new universes. Now, the infinite spirit, in difference to that, is the fact that the infinite spirit has its own divinity and personality, and that divinity and personality stretches out as far as the universal Father goes too. Okay, so you can think of the infinite spirit is projected out through all eternity along with the universal Father. So you really can't separate the two. Now, the only other thing that could do that would be the deity absolute, which we might get to tonight. I'm not sure. This must be called Roger. Somebody Atlanta, Georgia too. Y'all, I'm in a meeting right now. Can I help you? Hello? Okay. Now I've lost my train of thought.
Well, I've got a question.
Infinite absolute.
Oh, the deity absolute. The deity absolute, like the infinite spirit, is the deity controller of deity, can stretch itself out because it's got to go out as far as what? As the unqualified absolute, at least. Okay. So what was your question, Rodney?
Well, whereas the universal Father and infinite Spirit stretch to the limits,
Yes.
what about the Son, eternal Son, in contrast?
Okay, the eternal Son does not do that automatically, Rodney. And let me tell you why. The eternal Son is the administrator of all spirit reality.
Correct.
So if there are no spirit beings out wherever it is they're going to, then the eternal Son that would not be there until there would be a need for spirit beings in that reality. You see the difference?
Yes.
Okay, so the eternal Son would not stretch himself out to like the edges of infinity if there were no spirit beings out there.
Correct.
An example of that, there's a chart in the earlier papers where it actually shows the percentage of how much in each one is out in each outer space level. Okay?
I remember.
You remember that? And that's how we know whether he's out there or not. And the only way they can determine that is if there are spirit beings or spirit nature out there. So we have to think of it this way. Reality, that thing which we consider to us would be matter or space or this up to the 4 outer space levels, that space to God the Father and the infinite Spirit is that reality is different than the eternal Son reality with spirit beings. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if you think about it, all spirit reality lives within God the Father, but that spirit reality is limited by the presence or the persistence of the eternal Son in that area. Make sense?
Yes.
So if there was no eternal Son, there wouldn't be anybody out there. Make sense? Okay. All right, let's go on to the next one. Let's see, Diane, you're back up again.
Though in every way sharing the perfection through righteousness and the love of the universal Father, the infinite Spirit inclines towards the mercy attributes of the eternal Son, thus becoming the mercy minister of the paradise deities to the grand universe. Ever and always, universally and eternally, the Spirit is a mercy minister. For as the divine sons reveal the love of God, so the divine Spirit depicts the mercy of God.
Roger, you're muted.
Okay, let me mention something that was in the previous paragraph that has to do with this. Okay, and that is the spirit presence, the energy control and mind potential of the conjoint actor will be found adequate to meet the demands of the limitless creation. So if you did not have the conjoint creator or the infinite spirit in that area, there is no energy control there. Because where does the energy control come from? It comes from paradise. Okay. So all matter in any material thing that's moving, the energy control of that is controlled by the infinite spirit and her agency, his agencies. Okay, so if it was not there, there would be no energy control and there would be no mind potential out in that area because of the lack of the infinite spirit in that area. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's go on to the next one down. Then it talks about the eternal Son and the mercy ministry of the paradise deities. Remember in the earlier paragraphs, we talked how the Spirit is the mercy revealer of the Son. So you can think of the Son as merciful. You know, that's the main characteristic of, here's Tiffany. Hey, Tiffany.
Hey.
It's the main
Hey,
character of the Son of God, right, is mercy. So in order for mercy to be bestowed out into the grand universe, it takes the circuits of the infinite spirit for that mercy to go down. Kind of like this. This is a good way to relate to this personally, each one of us. Remember when we talked about how the bestowal of the spirit of truth, remember that? The spirit of truth originates with the eternal Son, not with the creator sons, but it is the spirit of the creator sons, but it is pushed out through each and every individual by what? The Holy Spirit. Because the Holy Spirit is the circuit pathway that the local universe mother spirit uses to push out the spirit of truth, which is the mercy ministry. Okay? That's how this all kind of interrelates to us. All right? Didn't confuse everybody, did I?
No.
Okay. Still with me. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Pam, I think you're up next.
It is not possible that the Spirit could have more of goodness than the Father, since all goodness takes the origin in the Father. But in the acts of the Spirit, we can the better comprehend such goodness. The Father's faithfulness and the Son's constancy are made very real to the spirit beings in the material creatures of the spheres by the loving ministry and ceaseless service of the personalities of the infinite spirit.
Okay, so how does this work? This works in three ways. This pushing out of the spirit of truth, right? The pushing out of the Holy Spirit to all beings, plus the mercy ministry or the loving ceaseless service of the personalities of the infinite spirit, which would be what? Your guardian angels, right?
Angel.
Your guardian seraphim, your cherubim and seraphim. Those are all agencies or personalities of the infinite spirit. So really you have, if you could say it this way, you have two forces. The force would be the spirit of truth, and the force would be the Holy Spirit. And then you have the personalities to help you along of your guardian angels. Does that all come together for y'all? And
Yes.
of course, you have internal communication with the Father through the thought adjustment, right? Constantly. Makes sense? All right. This is a picture of the infinite spirit and the ministering spirits. Okay, Letch, I believe you're up again.
Okay. The conjoint creator inherits all the Father's beauty of thought and character of truth. And these sublime traits of divinity are coordinated in the near supreme levels of the cosmic mind in subordination to the infinite and eternal wisdom of the unconditioned and limitless mind of the third source and center.
So through our mind circuit, through the mind circuit, the seven adjuncts, and eventually the cosmic mind, all these things are pushed out to us unconditionally, a limitless mind that comes directly from the third source and center. All right. So if you think about it, we can access the eternal wisdom of the third source and center through the mind circuit, comes right through. That's how we get our mind. Okay. All right. Now I'm done with this. I'm going to stop share. Wait a minute. I think there's a couple of pictures here I want to show y'all before I get off of this. All right. These are all the agents of the third source and center, all the seraphim, Sekanophim, Nomnophim, seraphim, all that. We know about the local universe circuits. I was thinking there was another picture I wanted to show y'all here. Yeah, here it is. This we've already gone through from this paper, the spirit person of the Father, and creating the eternal Son and paradise, non-deity, and eventually they this is what happened in eternity. Universal Father and the eternal Son eventuated the infinite spirit, and the billion worlds of Havona appeared simultaneously. Okay. Amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go back to this one right here. I'm going to go down one more. There we go. Okay, and this is another picture of the same thing. This is the Paradise Trinity, and we've talked about this before. Notice that God the Father is the center ring. God the Son's the next one, and God the Spirit is the next one, and they're all superimposed on paradise. And of course, everything past that is the post-Havona epic, because Havona appeared right after that. All right, finally, we're getting to the seven absolutes of infinity. Rodney, do you want to take this one?
Yes. The seven absolutes of infinity. Universal Father, first, original, absolute. Original Son, second, original, absolute. Conjoint Actor, third, original, absolute. The nuclear Isle of Paradise, fourth, original, absolute. Deity, absolute, or qualified absolute, is the fifth, revealed, spiritual, absolute. Universal, absolute, sixth, associative, resolving, absolute. Unqualified, absolute, seventh, unrevealed, physical, absolute.
Okay, there's a couple things I want to point out on this. These are the only seven absolutes in the reality of the world and infinity. Okay, so when we talk about this is the origin, history, and destiny of universe reality, these seven absolutes are the only seven absolutes of reality into infinity. Some of these have deity. Some of these do not. Okay. So the first three here, the Father, Son, and Conjoint Actor, the Infinite Spirit, all three of these are deity-based beings. Okay. They all have personality. The fourth, the nuclear Isle of Paradise, is not deity. It does not have deity. It does not have personality. It's just paradise. There is nothing else in the universe that is like paradise. There is nothing else in reality that you can relate paradise to, because all material matter originates with paradise. Okay? Now, the deity absolute has personality, and it's called the qualified absolute because it has personality, and it is the spiritual absolute, just like the original sun is what? The spiritual administrator of all spiritual reality. The deity absolute is the revealed spiritual absolute that is deified, and that's why it's called qualified. It is a deified absolute qualified for the spiritual reality. Okay. The universal absolute is the sixth absolute, but it's the associative resolving absolute. In other words, without the universal absolute, no connection could be made between the deity absolute and all that is physical and all that is finite. So it's the universal absolute that allows us to be part of reality. Okay? Because it makes the connection between the finite and the deified reality. The finite reality, material things are not deified on their own. It is only through the universal or qualified or the universal absolute that allows it to qualify all finite reality as part of the super universe. Okay. Now, the seventh absolute, notice here it says the unrevealed physical absolute. You see that? The reason it is unrevealed physical absolute because it's the mystery of taking a non-deified absolute that has no personality, and that part of the seventh absolute brings all the material from paradise and allows it to be used as physical matter for the creation of all universes or reality. Okay. And it's unrevealed because there is no personality to it. There is no deity to it. Okay. So it's a separate, unqualified absolute. Now, without the universal absolute to interpret deity, the will of God the Father, all right, it's the universal absolute that takes the will of the deity absolute and turns it into action for the unqualified absolute. So without this connection between these two, this universal absolute, the unqualified absolute would have no action, would not know what to do, because it has no personality and it has no deity. Okay? And we're going to find that to be more and more the case as we start to read through some of these. Now, how do I do this? I'm going to stop having y'all read for just a little bit to get through this one slide, because this will make no logical sense to y'all trying to read it. Okay? That's why I'm going to do it this way. This slide is a compilation of everything in the book about the deity absolute, which is the qualified absolute, the universal absolute we just looked at, and the unqualified absolute. Okay? And the reason I did this is every reference to these three things in the book.
Oh,
Okay. This is everything there is about the deity absolute and where it's found. This is everything there is about the universal absolute and where it's found. And this is everything there is to the unqualified absolute and where it's found. All
cool.
right. Let me go down here. Give me just 1 second. Let me read this top line up here in red. It's kind of hard to read. This says Appendix 3, deity relationships. This is how these deity relations relate to each other. A simplified overview of deity relationship. The gods may be seen individually or collectively as different aspects of one God, also known as three absolutes, existential deity. Always have been, always will be. The I am source of all existential and experiential deity. The experiential is that which is experienced. The I am that I am that I am. You see that? Okay, so this is all the relationships that fall within the I am, God the Father. All this falls underneath the God the Father. So the seven absolutes, you could say, would not exist if it weren't for the will of God the Father. Okay? And I'm going to read through these and kind of give you a real rough explanation. But the next slide, let me go down to the next slide, is more of an explanation of it. Okay? So don't get frustrated as I read through this. I put this other one first so you could have this as a reference. So I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to do this one first so that y'all get an overview of each one of these.
Yeah.
All right, let me see what I did here. Okay. First, the deity absolute, the qualified absolute. This is what's considered the quote, qualified. It's qualified because it has deity. Okay. The absolute level had no beginning. It is endless, timeless, and contains no space. In other words, this deity has no physical body. Okay. It's a spirit. The absolute transcends time, space, infinity, eternity, and the ultimate absolute of potentiality. All those potentials that God the Father can dream up of or thinks of anything in the future is these absolutes of potentiality. He's the activator of potential. So the deity absolute allows the will of God, these potential will of God, to become actual. Okay. One of seven absolutes of infinity. You can see there's numbers here. That's the paper this came from. Limitless, timeless, spaceless, boundless. In other words, it has no time and space, just like what? Just like the second level we have talked about of what? Not the absolutes, but what? Havona level, right? Okay. Timeless, spaceless, measures truly infinite. The qualified absolute, because he's qualified by deity, deifies the unqualified absolute in the universal absolute. So the deity absolute has to go through the universal absolute to move the unqualified absolute. Okay. Majeston, which is the head of reflectivity, Majeston was created in reaction to the deity absolute. He had to have it so that reflectivity could even function. He's a member of the triodity of potentiality, and that's one of the other trinities. We're not going to talk about that today. It controls all material reality. So the deity absolute, through the universal absolute, controls everything that's finite. Okay? Everybody still with me?
Yes.
I confused anybody yet? All right. Diane's going, yeah. You confused everybody. Okay. This is going to be clearer after we get through the next slide. The universal absolute is the absolute of potentiality. Remember when I said in the last paragraph that all the will of God, the potential will of God into the future is what's called the absolute of potentiality. In other words, everything that's possible. It's an inevitability. In other words, everything that God has as potential is going to happen regardless of what else happens around it. There's no way to stop it. Okay? That's why they call it the inevitability. It's the final function of the Trinity. And they've got a question mark by that. It's the infinite upholder, the I am, the self-assertiveness of God the Father. In other words, the I am that I am. So the self-assertiveness or the will of God the Father comes through the universal absolute, because the universal absolute is what calls it to action. Okay? It is measureless. It's times measureless. Timeless space is truly infinite. Energy proves existence of the universal absolute. So if we did not have the universal absolute, there would be no energy. There would be no energy for the infinite spirit to send down the circuits of energy. Okay? That's what causes the finite universe to exist. It functions and actions of the universal absolute alternate opposing precessions of space levels, part of the gravity technique of paradise. All right. It compensates the tension between the ever existent and the incomplete, makes material universe cosmically possible. Without the universal absolute, there could be no 7 super universes, because there would be no energy to keep them together. May be activated by the second experiential trinity, which is one of the 15 trinities, which we're not going to go into yet. He is a member of the Trinity of Trinities and the member of the triodity of potentiality. That's another one of the 15 trinities. He's the physical controller and may be reactive to the universal absolute. He is a triunity membership, unqualified absolute, and deity absolute unified in him. All right. This is the glue that keeps everything together, right? Think of it that way. So the deity absolute is the will of God, really. Okay. The universal absolute is the glue or the action that creates things and keeps them together, even the finite universes. Now, without the universal absolute, the unqualified absolute would be sticking out there not knowing what to do, because he has no self-will. Okay? All right, so let's go through the other one, the unqualified absolute. Existential things simply are. They just come into existence. The unqualified absolute is existential. He was created as a need. What do I mean by that? In other words, for the universes, the 7 super universes to start to be built from nothingness, the unqualified absolute came into existence, eventuated from nothingness, so that he could do his job of pulling primordial matter from nether paradise out to the universes to build the universes. So as he was needed, he appeared. Okay? All right? He's a positive reality, an absolute of potentiality, because he makes things that are possible. In other words, he's the potential to bring these things together. He's devoid of personality. What did I say earlier? He doesn't have his own personality. He has to use the universal absolute's personality. He is of infinite capacity. The I am static reactive. In other words, he is the part of the I am that I am that's reactive to what the Father wills to be. Okay? Well, this is some heavy stuff, isn't it? He is limitless, timeless, spaceless, boundless, and measureless, truly infinite. Repository of static potentials to things to be, created universes, uncreated universes. He's the revealer, regulator, and repository of all that has paradise as its source. So everything from paradise comes through the unqualified absolute, even everything in our local universe. You know, all these universes that have not been created yet in our local universe, guess who has to work on that? The unqualified absolute.
Roger,
Yeah.
you just said all the universes.
All the universes, both in outer space, but the local universes too. Any local universe that's not finished, that's still
Correct.
being created, and that's especially important to us because we're out here, you know, planet 606, and we know there's been 619. We know there's going to be 300 and something more in our local universe. So for that, those 600,
Um,
huh?
um, in Satania.
In Satania, just in Satania. Yeah, just in Satania. So in order for those universes to be created, what has to happen? The deity absolute has to give the will that it should be done from God the Father to the universal absolute. Okay? The universal absolute creates the action to tell the unqualified absolute that the creator son needs 300 and something more primordial matter starting points, cosmic clouds for the local universe creator sun to create planets out of. And so the unqualified absolute, when it gets its marching orders, it pulls primordial matter from paradise out to that local universe, and the architects of the master universe starts the process of creating a cosmic cloud or the primordial matter to start the universe.
Or a nebula.
A nebulae, right. Okay. So this has to happen at least 300 and something more times just in our system. And there's still 100 more systems. Okay. And we don't know what progress has been made on any of those. Okay. So this unqualified absolute is necessary for our local universe itself right now. Okay. Make sense? Now,
Yes.
when the creator sun and local universe mother spirit creates the planets, starts the energy systems into rotation, guess who has to maintain this? The universal absolute, because the universal absolute has to provide through the infinite spirit the energy patterns to keep the molecular rotation going on all these planets and all this matter.
Really?
Pretty complicated, isn't it?
It seems like the unqualified absolute is kind of like the generator.
It is. It's the starting point, right? It's the spark, if you would, to get us started. Okay, let's finish this little paragraph here. It's the revealer, regulator, and repository of all that paradise has as source. Totality of non-personal, extra divine, there's no divinity involved, and undeified reality. It's unpredictable in reactions because that's why they call it the unrevealed absolute. All right, could do just about anything. Unrevealed cosmic infinity of the I am, the absolute. I lost my place. An absolute of infinity. Emergent energy must be liberated from the unqualified absolute, the matter subject of cosmic over control of the unqualified absolute also. It may be activated by second experiential trinity, which is one of the 15 trinities. It's a member of the triodity of potentiality, and it's the master force organizers that manipulate primordial space forces. Outer space is the domain of the unqualified absolute. So everything in outer space as it's created is the domain of the unqualified absolute. Okay. That was a mouthful. Right. Okay, now we're going to go into a little bit better explanation of each one of these in this chart. And I'm going to get y'all to read some on this if you can see it. Tiffany, would you like to read tonight or not?
Oh, I would like to read.
Okay, could you read that first column for me, the qualified absolute?
Oh, I just need to enlarge, like maximize it so I can
Okay,
see.
that'd be
Sorry,
fine.
1
Yeah.
second. Okay. So the first column,
Yeah.
so it's the qualified absolute, revealed spiritual absolute. The deity absolute is that potential which was segregated from total infinite reality by the free will choice of the universal Father, and within which all divinity activities, existential, did I pronounce it right?
Yes, you did. Yes.
Existential and experiential take place. This is the qualified absolute in this in sorry, how to pronounce this word?
That's all right. Contradistinction to the
Contradistinction to the unqualified absolute, but the universal absolute is superadditive. Is that right?
Superadditive to both. That's right.
Superadditive to both in the encompassment of all absolute potential.
Okay. Let me go through this with y'all so that you have an understanding, because without the first one, you don't understand the rest of them. Okay. The qualified absolute the first thing is it is a revealed spiritual absolute. In other words, it's a deity absolute is revealed through the spiritual circuits or through the Son of God. Okay. So the only way you can understand this is through the Son of God and through the spiritual circuits of the Son of God. Right? It was segregated from the total of infinite reality by the universal Father. So what they're telling us is this: the qualified absolute is the free will of the Father, but it is the deity free will of God the Father, and they call it the qualified absolute because everything it does is deity oriented from God the Father himself. It's the will of the Father incarnate. Okay, so you can think of the qualified absolute as the will of the Father coming through to tell the universal absolute what God the Father's will is to do. That makes sense? Okay, so without the qualified absolute, there would be the universal absolute wouldn't know what to do. All right. It activates both all existential reality and experiential reality. Okay, so without the deity, the qualified absolute or the deity absolute, we couldn't have no what? Supreme being, could we? Because all the experiential experience that goes into the supreme has to come from somewhere. Okay. And that's where it comes from. It comes from the will of God. So the will of God literally states that all experience of every single being in the universe goes into the supreme being, and eventually the supreme being will become the God of experience. Okay? Because in essence, it comes straight from God the Father. Does that make sense? Now you kind of see how this is all works together. Now it's a constant distinction from the unqualified absolute who does nothing whatsoever without the will of God activating it through the qualified absolute, the universal absolute, into it. So it makes no action without the deity absolute or the qualified absolute whatsoever. Okay. The qualified absolute can act on its own. The unqualified cannot. Make sense? Because it's not the will of God. All right. It works through the universal absolute. It is super additive to everything and every potential out there. It goes through the universal absolute. That's why it's called the universal absolutes, because the associative resolving absolute. It resolves the will of God from nothingness into somethingness. Okay? Now, that's all there is on the qualified absolute in the book. And if you get those little concepts from the qualified absolute, you've got the whole banana, as they say. Okay? The other two are the actions of the qualified absolute. And like I said, the universal absolute is the glue that puts the unqualified absolute with the qualified absolute so it can act. Make sense? Now I'm out of time. I'm going to start on the universal absolute next time. I think I'm I don't want to blow y'all's minds up.
Well, is the qualified absolute sort of like the transmitter of God's will?
It is.
Passes on the other two.
That's a great analogy, Lesh. It really is. It's the transmitter of the will of God, in essence, right? Mm-hmm. So nothing in reality is done without the will of God or the qualified absolute. Okay. Now, why these are all so important is this. Everything in reality has to do with these seven absolutes. There is nothing in all the universes and all the universes to come or anything else that does not impinge upon the seven absolutes.
Yep.
You know, if you think about it. And if you understand the seven absolutes is the will of the I am, or the first source and center, God, then when you say God wants this done, that means all seven of the absolutes agree and they want it done too. Okay? Because all they're doing is fulfilling the will of God or the deity absolute, the qualified absolute. Make sense?
Yes.
Now you see why they went to all this trouble to kind of explain these seven absolutes to us so that we can get a overall big picture of how everything works. Everything else underneath this works through these seven. Everything. And you cannot separate any local universe, anything any of the sons of God does, anything any of the spirits do, or anything else without impinging on these seven absolutes. Make sense? Lot to take in. I know it's not easy concepts, but when you get it this way, when you read it through the book and you come upon the qualified absolute, you're going to go, oh yeah, I know what that is. Yeah, right. Isn't that right?
Right.
You're going, yeah.
Well, you know, the first few pages of the Rancha book, they talk about the absolutes. You
Yeah.
have absolutely no idea
what they're talking about. That's right. The absolute, is you're absolutely lost, right?
exactly.
That's why we're doing this. All right, yeah. Well, let's do our little prayer here. Let me stop the share. Go into the other one, and then we will go from there. Oops. All right. Everybody should see the prayer of acceptance there, right? Tiffany, you haven't had the opportunity to read our prayer, have you?
Oh, I haven't had a chance yet.
Would you like to read the prayer of acceptance here for us tonight?
Oh, I would love to.
Okay, go
Thank
ahead,
you.
go for it.
Okay. Prayer of acceptance. I believe that God is my paradise Father, and that only by faith am I saved. No sacrifice is necessary. By this same faith, I became a child of God, and that all men and women are my brothers and sisters. We know the Son of God as the sovereigns of our universe of Nabadon as Christ Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. By allowing the will of the Paradise Father to become my will, I will someday stand in the presence of God. In the name of Christ Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen.
Amen.
Okay.
Man.
Thanks everybody at home for coming and seeing this. Everybody on Facebook and YouTube and all the rest of them. And we will continue with our last segment of the Lucifer Rebellion on Tuesday. And then we'll come back to this again on Thursday. So thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. We will see you next time.
Thank you so much, Roger. It was really
Yeah.
very clarifying.
Thank y'all for
Yeah.
coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank you. Tiffany,
Thanks
good
for
to see
being
you
our
again.
transmitter.
so much.
All right. See everybody next time.
Bye.
Love you guys.
Thank you.
You too.